Devastation at India's space agency as scientists lose contact to the Chandrayaan-2 only seconds before its landing. The spacecraft was meant to become the first ever to touch down on the unexplored south pole of the moon. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to see the landing from the control room. The Chandrayaan-2 was successfully launched in July after a previous attempt was called off due to technical problems. Chandrayaan, which means mooncraft in ancient Sanskrit, spent the last few weeks travelling towards the south side of the moon. On Monday, the landing robot Vikram separated from the craft ahead of its planned touchdown. It was supposed to measure the surface and locate water deposits. India would have been only the fourth country in the world to achieve a controlled, soft landing.
Outrage. That is the reaction from some lawmakers right now after the Trump administration announced this week that the money to pay for the president's border wall is going to come not from anything Congress has approved and definitely not from Mexico, but instead from diverting billions of dollars that were set for military construction projects. According to the Defense Department, 11 wall projects at the border will mean 127 military construction projects are now on hold.
Norfolk, Virginia is home to the U.S. Navy's Atlantic Fleet and the largest naval base in the world. The area's central and vital role in military operations and national security hasn't stopped the Trump administration from naming 4 different military projects here, whose almost $80 million in funding will now be diverted to pay for the border wall.
Survivors of Hurricane Dorian are scrambling to evacuate the Bahamas after the storm devastated the island. The official death toll is 43, but is expected to increase significantly. More than 6,600 people were listed on the website Dorian People Search Bahamas as of Friday morning. The Prime Minister called for calm and promised more free transport as thousands await evacuation. Dorian was a Category 5 hurricane when it hit the Bahamas last week and stalled in the north of the country for days before continuing on its path. According to the UN, at least 70,000 Bahamians need immediate humanitarian relief after their homes were destroyed. The Red Cross predicts 45% of homes, nearly 13,000 properties, have been severely damaged or destroyed. Part of the Bahamas received 89 centimeters of rain, leaving vast areas flooded. On Saturday morning, Dorian was moving towards Nova Scotia as a Category 1 storm.
Now, leaving its mark on Daejeon, Incheon, and Chungcheongnam-do province, the typhoon has caused severe damages. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters has confirmed 2 people have died and 7 have been injured as of 4 p.m.
Mogyan, a man in his late 30s, died at a hospital parking lot in Incheon after walls collapsed on him after heavy winds. And a 75-year-old woman also died in Boryang City at 10:30 a.m. after heavy winds blew her off the roof of her tractor shed. A couple in the same city were also injured after a steel structure fell on their house. There are reports of damage here in Seoul, too. A church spire fell on a car after spinning around in the air, and plastic wall coverings were blown off of a building onto the road. And in surrounding areas like the cities of Incheon and Daejeon, windows were shattered, trees were uprooted, and store signs were blown down.
He's been struggling to control Parliament, and even hundreds of kilometres from Westminster, Boris Johnson wasn't having an easy time of it. Britain's Prime Minister was in Scotland to announce extra funding for farmers. He hasn't got the election he wants yet, but with photo opportunities like this, the campaign certainly feels like it's underway. Johnson insists he's no intention of resigning if he doesn't get Britain out of the EU soon.
That is not a hypothesis I'm willing to contemplate. I want us to get this thing done. And, I think the people of this country also do. And there's an opportunity to be so much more positive about all this.
Earlier, at a fish market, he promised again that Britain would leave the European Union by the 31st of October.
We're all going to go out. We're going to come out on October the 31st.
Opposition parties are continuing to pile on the pressure, saying they'll vote against his plans to hold an October the 15th general election.
A major prisoner swap has been completed between Russia and Ukraine after months of talks. We have been looking at live pictures over the past hour of what has been happening, those prisoners going from either side. As you can see beside me on screen, we have Igor Zhdanov. Igor is at the Vnukovo Airport, International Airport, just outside Moscow, where the Russians have touched down.
Well, Ewan, we finally got a confirmation that the swap was 35 people for 35 people. It's official, 35 Ukrainians for 35 Russians. They, in fact, did touch down just minutes ago, about half an hour ago, I should say, at an airstrip a few hundred meters behind that wall, behind those gates behind me. And we already saw them walking down from the airport, all 35 people, very, very happy. They're finally home.
Protesters chant in support of the man they say is the rightful president of Cameroon, Maurice Kamto. They're gathered outside a military court in the capital Yaoundé, where the main opposition leader is one of dozens of politicians standing trial. They're accused of insurrection and rebellion against the government, charges that carry the death penalty. Kamto lost to President Paul Biya, who's ruled for 35 years in last year's election. But Kamto's party, the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, accuses the government of rigging the vote results. Following anti-government protests, Kamto and more than 80 other politicians were arrested in January. Their defense teams accuse the authorities of denying them basic human and legal rights in court.
C'est triste, mais c'est triste d'abord pour lui et pour les Brésiliens. Et donc, moi, je pense que les femmes brésiliennes ont sans doute honte de lire ça de leur président.
A fourth death has been reported from a severe lung illness linked to vaping. The CDC says it's looking into more than 450 cases in 33 states. Health officials believe some chemicals found in e-cigarette and marijuana vaping products are to blame, but they've not identified any single device, product, or substance that's responsible. An article in the New England Journal of Medicine noted e-cigarette fluids contain at least 6 groups of potentially toxic compounds. CBS News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. John LaPook joins me now. Hi. Dr. LaPook, thank you so much for being with us. So since health officials cannot identify exactly what is causing this specific illness, what questions are they asking right now?
Well, one thing they've done is to kind of figure out, it doesn't look like it's an infection. That's a big deal. It looks like it's a chemical. And you have to think of what e-cigarettes are doing, and it's kind of like a chemistry set, right? So you have the fluid that's in there, and it's got all of these different chemicals in it. In addition, you're then heating it up. There's metal there, and it can combine with things coming off the metal. And the question is, what's being produced there?
Finally tonight here, our persons of the week, Hurricane Dorian and the unimaginable devastation. But in every storm, there are the heroes, those who answer the call. There have been so many first responders, among them the Coast Guard Air Station Clearwater, on a search and rescue mission for days, landing in the Bahamas, carrying those in need, offering words to care for them, to console them as they brought the injured to safety.
Hey, watch your foot.
Too many injured to count. A pickup truck becomes their makeshift ambulance, walking through debris to get the injured to safety, one by one loading them into those helicopters. The Coast Guard says they have rescued hundreds since Dorian began.
The crews have been in high spirits. We've been working hard. Our crew got, I think, about 10 people.
Their numbers growing by the hour.
Some people said that their homes had fallen on them. So our main priority was getting the most injured out.